Hi, I'm Rachel from Gentle Frog. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. If you're having issues with your bookkeeping, please follow the link at the end of the video to schedule a one-on-one appointment with me. Thank you. All right, so I've entered all three of the animals that our client has purchased from us. Because I needed to get my totals to match my make-believe bank entries, I needed to create shipping and handling. So we did say these are non-inventory. They are non-inventory. They're just magical from thin air animals, but apparently we've decided to charge shipping and handling on them. So I have $65 shipping that I need to record on the invoice that I create in QuickBooks. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I've got the animals entered, but I don't have a category for shipping. When I type in shipping, it gives me the chance to add, so I say add. And then it asks if it's a non-inventory or if it's a service, and we'll call it a service. And I'm actually going to change my mind and call it shipping and handling. And then I'll say shipping and handling. The price for shipping varies, which is probably true for your business. If you do charge shipping, that price will vary. I want to see my shipping income separate from my fantasy animal income. I want to know how much money am I making on the animals versus how much money do I make on the shipping and handling. When I click the drop down, I don't see shipping and handling as an option here. So I'm going to click on Add New at the top of my list. So I'm going to say shipping income. I'm not going to worry about the detail type, and I'm not going to add a description. I'm just going to say save and close. All right, here I'm going to say save and close. The amount of shipping on my invoice is $65. I can see my balance due matches the amount of my invoice, so I'm going to choose save. Up here at the right, there's receipt payment. I can click on receipt payment to indicate my client has paid for this. I know they've paid for it because I marked the invoice, or I renamed the invoice to say paid at the end of it. So I'm going to click on receipt payment. So receipt payment, Brian paid. Let's say he paid, a couple days later, and then he paid with a check number 1234. I've deposited into my checking account. This is the amount of money I've received. I'm going to mark that this invoice is being the one being paid. And then I don't have any more payments to receive, so I'm going to say save and close. I'm going to come over here and take a look at my banking. And I see, okay, what's next? I have 1073 that's next. So I'm going to look for that invoice. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just entering in the invoices that I previously created for my clients. So let's do this, and let's do this. So I'll pull over the invoice so you can see it. Muffin McRitchie purchased 7 mermaids. So with the magic of editing, we're just going to get that invoice created real quick, but you're not going to have to watch me do it in slow motion. All right, invoice 101 is now created and saved. It's for Muffin. It's $1,073. I'm not going to choose receipt payment here because I want to show you a different way to do it. I'm just going to click the X in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to find my 1073. Oh, I wanted to show you how this 1073 QuickBooks would recognize that that's customer money, but it didn't. So when I'm working with my training clients, I always tell them they need to mark things as received payment. And this is why, because QuickBooks doesn't always know it, even though I feel like it should or could or whatever. In the upper left-hand corner, we'll click on Plus New. Under the Customers column, we'll go down to Receive Payment. Who is the customer that paid us? Muffin is the customer. When did they pay us? Let's look at their invoice date. So her invoice was on 1/10. Let's say that she paid us the following Monday. She paid with a check at check 1001. and then she paid 1073. The money went directly into the checking account. If you had multiple bank accounts, you might indicate which bank account it goes into, but in this case, we just say it went into checking because that's the only bank account we have. And then we say save and close. So here, this should show as a match, but it does not. I'm going to click refresh. So what we're looking at here is this deposit of 1073. This should have matched with the deposit we just recorded just moments ago, but for some reason it didn't connect or it didn't link or it doesn't show up as a match. We know that it's there because we're actively working on catching up old data. So let's go ahead and click on this line anywhere that is not the green confirm. I'm going to click on the little circle that says find match. And then QuickBooks looks around and says, oh my gosh, I found a match. And I say, yes, you did, QuickBooks. Thank you so much. And I click save. What I want to do is I want to link the payment that I've already recorded for Muffin with the deposit that's showing up here in my bank feeds. What I don't want to do is add it as a secondary sale. If I add it as a secondary sale, it'll show up more than once in my bank register. It'll show up more than once in my profit and loss, and I'll end up paying taxes on the wrong amount of money. All right, so I'm going to run through a couple more of these. What I want to show you is one shortcut that might be of interest to you. So let's grab the last invoice that I've created. So this invoice is also to Muffin. Apparently, she likes to shop with us a lot. It's dated 125, and it's for a total of 5147. Instead of creating an invoice in QuickBooks and marking it as paid, I'm going to create a sales receipt this time. The difference between a sales receipt and an invoice is a sales receipt is what you do. A sales receipt is the transaction you record when you've received the payment at the time of the sale. We didn't receive the payment at the time of the sale, but we're catching up a year's worth of data. At this point, we know it's been paid, and it will not harm us at all to mark it as a sales receipt instead of an invoice. So Muffin's already in here, so I don't have to add her again. I can just fill in the date. So what was our date? It was 125. I just end up using the keyboard for this, but if you're not a keyboard person, you can always come up here and click around to get where you need to go. Number 102. So over here, the payment method, it's check. Check number 1005. And then what did she buy? So with the magic of editing, I'm just going to get this stuff entered, and then you'll see the totals. All right, and we're back. So there is a sales receipt entered. I have all the information just like it appears on the invoice I previously created. The invoices you're creating for your clients might be done in Word or Excel, or in the case of one of my real life clients, on a paper ticket book that you just scan over and send to your bookkeeper. It doesn't matter how you're tracking it, just if you are tracking it, I want you to know you can go back and enter it in your QuickBooks later if you're doing a catch up. So let's go ahead and scroll down and see if it matched it or found it. 5147, it did not. I don't know why not. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this and say find match and connect it. Yep. All right. So we've entered some stuff, and I want you to see where stuff is going now that we have a little bit of it entered. On the left-hand side, if I hover over the word sales and then I come down to customers, I can see my customers and I can see what they've been purchasing from me. So Brian, for example, he had an invoice and a payment. If I click on the invoice, I can see what he bought. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to click on this little arrow and, 3 lines up here to the left of his name. And that'll take me back to my customer list. And I'll look at Muffin this time. And I can see what Muffin has been purchasing from me. So this is starting to come together. I can click on reports on the left-hand side of my screen. I can click on profit and loss. And I can see, here's my sales so far. I had $14,000 worth of sales and $200 worth of shipping income. I've had about $10,000 worth of expenses. So my business so far has made about $4,000. But of course, we know we haven't entered anywhere near all of the transactions. We can see things are coming together. There's a couple of fun things that I want to show you before we get back into the meat of what we're doing. If we click on reports and we come up here and we type products, only because it's easier and faster than scrolling down to find this, I can say sales by product and service summary. What I like about this is I can see what are my hot sellers. So I changed it to all dates and run report. So it looks like the shoelace snake is 46% of my sales. It's pretty good. It has an average price of $225. The next biggest, what are we looking at? The dragon, average price of $125, but it's 12% of the sales. My second most expensive is the jackalope, but it's only 6% of my sales. You can see that having the detail of what you're selling will let you really see what's your hot sellers. What are you selling the most of in terms of quantity, in terms of percentage of sales, how much total. All this stuff is available to you by going to this report, the sales by product and service summary. Whereas when you go to the profit and loss, you're just going to see the grand total. You're going to see, here's my sales. Good job, you have sales. When you click on this, you can see a little bit more, but you really can't see the detail of what's selling well. If you wanted to look at the list of things that you sell, this is one of those times you click on the big gear in the upper right-hand corner. If I go to column number 2 and option number 2, products and services, that's the list of the things that I put on the invoice or the sales receipt. What I wanted to show you here was how you can modify things if you need to. So I can see that I have my pictures of the things that I've been selling for everything but my jackalope. If, for example, you realize that the default description, or I don't even know what the pictures do besides entertain us, but if you realize that the default description wasn't correct, if you wanted it to be different, you can pop in here and correct it. In this case, I realized I don't have a picture of the jackalope and I'd like to add one. So I'm going to go to the right and I'm going to click Edit. When I click Edit, it takes me back to this screen, which was my setup screen. So what we need to do next is we need to enter in all of our pending banking, and then we need to go back and reconcile our account. So let's take a look. I have 92 things to enter. In the real world, if you're entering years worth of stuff, you likely have a lot more than 92. But I just want to get through a couple of these to kind of show you how it can be done, a couple of shortcuts we can do. So I'm going to not create invoices for the rest of my sales. I'm just going to say, you know what? My business doesn't have old invoices. My business tracks invoices elsewhere, whatever the case is. Because I want this video to be a tutorial that'll be useful for a variety of people. Not everyone tracks their invoices. Not everyone has historical invoices. So from this point forward, our old sales are just going to be called sales. They're not going to link to a client, and they're not going to link to a particular item that was sold. So this deposit, we'll call it sales. We'll click confirm. Huel and Sons, let's go ahead and add them. Huel and Sons. I don't know what job supplies are. It's a weird default that just magically appears. We'll call it repairs. So then this deposit we'll say as sales. This pop-up, QuickBooks is saying, is the classification, the word deposit, is that always the income account called sales? And I can say, yeah, it is. That would be really great if you can just do this for me automatically. So this says, is this always sales? If I say yes, create a rule, and if this, then that rule, to apply this to similar transactions in the future. Auto confirm means please add it to my register without ever stopping to ask me if it's okay. Don't show me this again is self-explanatory. Edit rule means I want to edit the way this rule operates. And create rule says, yes, please do the thing you are suggesting. So I'm going to say yes to create the rule. What it's going to do is it's going to take all of the transactions that currently say deposit and assign it to the income account called sales. So I'll create rule. They will magically disappear from our list without ever asking us. We went from 90 something down to 37. Right now, the tab we're on is the for review. It just means for the human to review. And the second tab is categorized. Categorized means here's the stuff that's been entered. This is not organized in terms of what you have most recently entered. It's organized either by date or description or by amount. If something gets added and it's incorrect, you can click undo to the right, or you can click this blue hyperlink to fix it. So let's go back to for review. Let's look and see if we have any more Januaries. Let's get our Januaries squared away. So Town, Larkin. What did we buy from them? Let's see about travel. This would have been a better travel. We'll call it an insurance. Insurance, yes. Because these are all make-believe, we don't have to stop to think about what they really are, and we just say, oh, we're just going to guess. So Cub, I'm pretty sure we've already entered. And QuickBooks is suggesting rent or lease, but because we've already entered them, and because we want to be consistent, we can always double check and see what category did we use last time we entered for Cub. To double check the category we used last time, we can hover over expenses and then come down to vendors. We can search for the vendor, so we'll search for Cub, and then we can see, yep, rent or lease. So that's great. What we can also do, if we'd like QuickBooks to be helpful for us, is we can edit the vendor, and we can say, you know what, the default expense account for this particular vendor is rent or lease, and then click Save. When we go back to banking, QuickBooks should know that Cub should automatically populate with rent or lease. So let's do McLaughlin LLC. We'll pretend this one was education. Education's not on our list. So the list is the list of categories, also known as the list of chart of accounts or accounts on your chart of accounts. When you find that you as the business owner want to track something in a particular account because it makes the most sense to you, I want you to feel empowered to do that. If it's not in your list, go ahead and add it to your list. So we're going to say, let's add education. We want to keep track of the money we spend on education separate from the money we spent in other areas. When we go to add this add account screen automatically defaults to suggest that the account type is a bank. And you say, thank you, QuickBooks. I've already added my bank account. This is, in fact, an expense account. So we just scroll until we find expense. We ignore the rest of it. We choose Save and Close. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the rest. I'm going to click Confirm. Every time I click Confirm, it just takes it out of my to-do list and puts it in my register. When it's on my register, that means that it's going to show up on my profit and loss report probably, but on my balance sheet for sure. Everything that you do has a debit and a credit, and it's going to show up on one or both of those reports depending on what it is. Collins, I got so busy talking I legit forgot what Collins was. So Collins was legal and professional. I can just copy it. I don't have to copy it. I do that because if I get busy talking, I might forget. So we'll say legal and professional. We'll click confirm. So for some reason, QuickBooks did not suggest to make a rule for Collins, but I'd like to make a rule. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and click on just the name Collins. Really, I can click anywhere that is not the blue and not the green. When I do that, it opens up the box. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click on Create a Rule. I'm going to call this rule Collins. I'm going to call this rule Collins Inc. It applies to money out from all bank accounts. And I always change this to say bank text So when the bank text contains Collins Inc., do this thing. Make it an expense. Use the category of legal and professional. Make the payee Collins. And then automatically add it to my QuickBooks. Click Save. That took the Collins out of the to-do list, which is great. Since we're talking about rules, if you're curious about rules, where to find them, it's just up here at the top of the screen. So I'll click on Rules, and I can see the two rules I have. This one, the rule name is suggested, and then some other stuff we can't read. It's a really good case to go ahead and edit the rule. So I'm going to click to the right and click on the word Edit, and I'm going to give it a better name, which is Deposit as Sales. It doesn't matter what name you pick. The names are just here to help you. So I can search up here and say, oh, show me that sales rule, or show me that Collins rule. Right now I have 2 rules, but imagine if you had 100. This is incredibly helpful. So let's take a step back and go to our reports. I'm going to go to the profit and loss report. And I can see, my goodness, I've certainly had a lot more sales than I did a few minutes ago when I looked at this. I can see my expenses, and then I can see my net income or net loss. The report we haven't looked at yet is the balance sheet. So let's click on Reports, and let's click on Balance Sheet. The balance sheet tells me the amount of money I have in my checking account, $175,000. That is not true at all. But what we know is we've entered in all of our income because QuickBooks made that rule to say all the sales income, just assign it without asking us, but we as the humans still have to log all the expenses. So our checkbook is only showing the income, it's not showing any of the money spent. Our accounts receivable, right now nobody owes us money. The money we've invested into the business to get going. And then the net income, which pulled from the profit and loss report. So this is looking good. Things are really coming together for us. What I suggest that you do once you get all of your banking entered, once you have all these 26 transactions into your QuickBooks, is I suggest you reconcile your account. Through the magic of video editing, I'm going to get the remaining 26 transactions entered, and then we'll move on to reconciling our bank account. So we've got all of the transactions entered. So really, when we think about our to-do list, this part of the to-do list is done. And now what we have is to double check ourselves and correct any errors. There are some errors that I've intentionally made just so that I can show you how to find them and how to fix them. So the first thing we want to do is just to reconcile our bank account. Reconciling the bank account will help us capture any missing transactions and identify any duplicate or erroneous transactions. So let me go to the Reconcile screen. There's a handful of ways to get there. We'll do this by clicking on Accounting on the left-hand side of the screen and then choosing Reconcile. So we wait for it to open. While that's thinking, let's go ahead and grab our bank statements. All right, I've got my bank statements downloaded, match the books to the bank records, and then there's an 8-minute video to see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and skip the 8-minute video, and I'm just going to click on Let's Get Started. There's going to be a handful more pop-ups. I'm just going to click them as we go. You can always pause if you want to read the pop-ups. So what we're reconciling is the checking account. If we were reconciling something else, we would click on this drop-down and we would change it to the other account we're reconciling, such as a different checking account or a credit card. The beginning balance should match the statement. On your statement, it might say something like starting balance, and then the ending balance is going to be whatever it is on your statement, and then the ending date. I never want you to skip ahead. I always want you to go 1 month at a time. So let's grab our beginning statement, which is January. So our opening balance was $0. That matches QuickBooks. And then our ending balance is negative $2,900. Not our proudest moment. Let's go ahead and move this over to the second screen. So we'll do negative 2,900. And then the date, it's 1/31/01/31/20. Start reconciling. So on the reconciliation screen, what I want to do is I want to put a little blue check mark to the right of everything that appears on my bank statement. If it doesn't appear on my bank statement, it doesn't get a blue check mark. So as I look through the list, I can see some stuff is pre-checked. It's pre-checked because when it downloaded from the bank and we chose to add or categorize or accept or whatever the words are when you're doing this for yourself, that means that QuickBooks will pre-check it. So when it comes into here, it's a little bit easier and faster for us to reconcile. I do notice that there is this deposit of 8440 and that it doesn't have a check mark. If I look back at my bank statement, I'm not going to see it on my bank statement. So I'll pull it over here so you can see it. So here's my bank statement from Silly Bank USA. As I look through it, I have deposits, I have withdrawals, I have a running balance, and what I don't have is that one deposit. So let me go back to the QuickBooks and take a look and see what's going on. This is a really good example of why we reconcile. Because we've downloaded everything and we think that we're perfect, but yet somehow our bank account is off by $8,000. So when I click on this line, I can click on Edit to learn more. What I can see is this is a payment that we manually recorded saying that Brian paid his invoice. This invoice was for $8,400 and that it got deposited into the checking account. I don't see where it shows up on my checking statement for January, but I've indicated the money came in January. This is one of those cases where I have to stop and ask myself, as the business owner, am I sure that this person paid, or do I just think they paid and therefore I marked it as paid? For right now, I'm not 100% sure that they paid, so I'm going to delete this payment. It doesn't impact the invoice, it keeps the invoice completely intact, and it just says this payment hasn't shown up yet. So I'm going to delete it. Are you sure you want to delete? Yep, I'm sure. I'm deleting the payment because it doesn't show up on the bank statement and I'm not confident that he paid it. If I find out later that he did pay it, I can always mark it as paid. If I get through my entire 2020 catch up and I never find a payment, then I can make a decision on what I'd like to do. So now I can go through if I want line by line and verify that all these transactions appear in my bank statement. I can also just take a look and see, here's my payments and here's my deposits, and do those numbers match the numbers on my bank statement? Here's those totals, and they do match. So I know that I've done my reconciliation correctly. I know that everything that appears on my bank statement is in QuickBooks. There's nothing extra in QuickBooks. There's nothing missing in QuickBooks for the month of January. Okay, the next step is to click Finish Now in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to repeat this process 1 month at a time until we get to December. All right, congratulations, you've reconciled your account. I'm going to choose Done. The next thing I want to do is reconcile February, and we're just going to do a couple of these together, and then we'll fast forward to get to the end of the year. So 228.20, start reconciling, verified everything, click Finish Now. You get the idea. This can go very, very quickly. All right, we're now up to December. Let's go ahead and enter the December numbers. 12/31/20, start reconciling. So we're off by $1,800. One thing I do want to tell you is that in the process of doing this, I never found that payment that we deleted earlier from January, which means if the client did pay, maybe it went to my personal account or maybe they didn't pay at all. But in any case, it just never showed up here. All right, so we're off by $1,800. We've double checked our payments, they're all correct. We've double checked our deposits, they're all correct. The next thing to look at when this happens to you is the statement ending balance. Is your statement ending balance the same in QuickBooks as it is on your bank statement? There are times, especially during catch-up projects like this, that we make mistakes and we accidentally enter the wrong number. So our statement ending balance is 52409. I realize that's an easy number to remember, but because I can, I'm going to choose to copy and paste it. I can see that's not at all what I have up here in the upper left-hand corner. To change this, I'm going to click on the upper right-hand corner where it says Edit Info. And I'm going to say, oh my gosh, that's not right. My statement ending balance is actually the number that I copied. I'll click Save, and then voila, my difference is 0. My difference was always 0. I just had the wrong statement ending balance. I had switched the 2 and the 4. I'm going to select Finish Now. I've now caught up entering all of my transactions for 2020, and so I'm feeling pretty victorious. I must pat myself on the back. The next step, now that I've double checked for any sort of numerical errors, is to look for any sort of classification errors. So I'm going to go to my reports. I'm going to start with my balance sheet. This is really important. I find business owners don't always look at their balance sheet, and I strongly encourage you to do so. So I'm going to click on the balance sheet. And what we're looking for is just logic. Does everything feel like it makes sense? Even though you as a business owner, or me, when I am a unicorn business owner, even though you might look at this and say, I don't know if that's right or not, you might have a good sense of that couldn't possibly be right. You have a good sense of your checking account. So in this case, our make-believe checking account has a balance of $50,000. The computer seems to think that we have $8,000 of money that people owe us. Maybe that's right, maybe it's not. As we scroll down, we don't see any sort of credit card debt. We don't see anything else that's kind of funny. A popular funny thing, as I like to call it, is that QuickBooks will sometimes suggest uncategorized asset as a reason for money in or money out. And you might see something up here that says uncategorized asset. When you're looking at the balance sheet, if you really don't know what something is, such as uncategorized asset, or if, for example, QuickBooks tells you you have value in inventory, but you sell a service business that doesn't have inventory, those are signs of mistakes that you're going to need to work on fixing. Oftentimes, there's stuff that you won't be able to instinctively fix, but someone like me can help you fix in about 10 minutes. So don't stress it if it happens. If it does happen, if you do get stuck, give me a call. Little hint, my business name is Gentle Frog, not Gentle Frog's Fantasy Pet Shop. But for the purpose of this video, I am Gentle Frog Fantasy Pet Shop. Okay, so we look at this and we say the only thing we're not sure about is this accounts receivable. So let's look at the accounts receivable and just see who it is. You absolutely can click on this number. I find that if you use accounts receivable a lot, that's a frustrating report to view in this way. So instead, I'll encourage you to click on reports on the left. Then click on Accounts Receivable, Aging Summary. With this, you can see who owes you money and how long they've owed it for, give or take. So in this case, Brian has owed us money for more than 3 months. What we might do is we might say, we're just going to write off that money Brian owes us. We never collected it. It's now 12 months later. It would be kind of embarrassing to ask for it. We're just going to write it off. So let's see what we have here. So to write it off, what we want to do is we want to create a credit memo in the same amount, or for the same amount. So it's 8440. And theoretically, I should remember that, but I just copied the number just in case I need it. To create a credit memo, I'm going to click on Plus New in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to go to Customers, and then I'm going to go down to Credit Memo. I'm going to select my customer, Brian. I'm going to make the credit memo dated today. For the product or service, instead of figuring out what it was, I'm going to make a whole new one called Bad Debt. I'll call it Bad Debt / Write-Off. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to see on my profit and loss how much money I've written off. I'm going to call it a service. Neither of them really fit, but that'll be fine. Down here, we'll just say bad debt write-off. Okay, so this name was the name we saw in the gear in the upper right-hand corner. It's the list for the products and services. And then over here is the income account. And so I'm going to say bad debt written off. You can give the income account an account name that makes sense to you. This is one that makes sense to me. Okay. So I realize that it's not income, but I want to see it up there with my income. I want to see the money that I earned by selling stuff. I want to see the money I've earned by shipping and handling. And then I also want to see the money that I had to give back or write off because it was bad debt. So I'm going to say save and close. This will appear as a negative on the profit and loss report because it's a credit memo. I'm going to say save and close here. So quantity of 1, thankfully I copied the number earlier so I don't have to remember it. That was not the right number. All right, let's do this. I'm going to duplicate my tab. That number was the number from when we were reconciling, and I apparently did not copy after all. All right, so we're at the home page. Let's go ahead and go to sales and to customers. We could do this, or we could go to the accounts receivable aging report we were just at. All we really need to know is how much Brian owes, and it's 8440. So we're going to make the credit memo 8440. We're going to say save and close. So now when we look at the balance sheet, we should not see anything in the accounts receivable. So I just want to go back and double check that before we move on to the next report. So accounts receivable, $0. This all looks good. So next, let's look at the profit and loss report. I'm going to click on reports. And I'm going to choose profit and loss. This is my profit and loss. And remember a moment ago I told you the bad debt would show up on the profit and loss. This is where it is. It's its own separate line item. I absolutely could have mapped that product or service down here to sales, but then it would blend in with all my other sales, and I want to see it separate. I want it to be a reminder to myself to follow up on invoices so that this doesn't happen next year. So I'm just going to scroll down. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, yep, okay, goodness. And then, here's my bottom number. The next thing I want to do just for myself is I want to display these columns by, and I'm going to change it from total to say months. And I'm going to run report. What I like about looking at stuff month over month is that I can see trends. I can also look for any spikes or dips. So is there anything here that doesn't make sense to me? Now, because this is all made up stuff, there isn't any significant trends. But you'll notice for yourself with your own business. For example, you might say, oh, $7,000 in advertising. Oh, yeah, it's that membership or contract or something that I pay once a year. Seeing it like this might help you remember to plan for it for next February. Seeing other stuff like legal and professional, you might look at this and say, oh, I spent a lot of money, but then you'll remember, oh, I got all my contracts done in April, and that won't happen next year. Like, I'll have my contracts, and they'll be good forever, and I won't need to spend this money. You might look at meals and entertainment and say, oh, I really need to, rein that in, or whatever the case. So this is just a different way of looking at stuff, both so you have knowledge of how things are going with your business, but also just in case you made mistakes. They might pop out to you. You might see them a little bit more clearly here. I want to show you something else which doubles as useful for generating the 1099s, but also useful for kind of just seeing where's your money going and are you being consistent with your classifications. So if I click on reports on the left-hand side, there's tons of great reports, and I use this find because it's faster for me. I'm going to type in the word vendor and then transaction list by vendor. this is showing me this month to date, but I want to see this year. Let me modify this report slightly. I'm going to click on the year. I'm going to click show more. I'm going to click split. So now it should update. Okay. So the account over here just says where did the money come from or go, and split, it's a funny word, but it just says which account on the chart of accounts did you use when you logged this entry. If you are having the same situation I'm having where you can't really see everything, one trick I have for you is you can click these little lines in the upper left-hand corner and collapse the gray bar on the left side. So now I can see this. So what I'm looking for is just consistency and making sure that I put stuff where I intended to. So Adams, Windler, and Leher, did I intend to put it into legal? Yes. Buckridge, contractors, great. Collins, legal, great. I'm just going to look through here and look for any inconsistencies, anything I might have put in the wrong spot. Wrong meaning you're the business owner and you know why you spent money, and were you consistent? For example, Hewlett & Sons, I called it repairs once, education once, and then contractors. Whatever's happening here isn't consistent. Maybe they really did do all three types of services for me, or maybe I made a mistake. It's okay if you made a mistake, you can easily fix it. So let's take this line for education, and let's say that should have been contractors. So I'm just going to click on this. I can click anywhere. It turns itself into a blue hyperlink. And I wait for it to open. So over here, I'm going to change the category to contractors. In the lower right-hand corner, I'm going to say save and close. It says the transaction has been reconciled, and I say that's fine. The only time I worry about that is if I change the number. But if all I'm changing is the category, no problem. It does not do anything to mess up my reconciliation. I don't want to change the rest of these because I think it'll just take forever at the speed that this is going. But you do get the idea. I want you to be able to do that so you can see, okay, here's what I'm doing. Did I put stuff in the right buckets? Was I consistent? Did I put it where I wanted to put it, etc.? Let's go ahead and click the dashboard and just go back to our home page and take a look at our QuickBooks file with fresh eyes. At this point, we have added the products and services that we sell. We've entered in some invoices. We've entered in sales without invoices. We've entered in deposits that came from sales. We've entered in deposits that came from the banker, Rachel. We've reconciled our bank account. We've double-checked our reports. We've seen our hot sellers. We've done all the things. So this is great. This is what we needed to do. I want to show you a couple of things that maybe you haven't seen or we haven't talked about, and then we'll just wrap up this video and move on to the next software. This shortcuts may or may not appear when you're working within your QuickBooks Online. If it doesn't, no big deal. Almost everything that you're going to do is going to appear behind the plus new in the upper left-hand corner. When I click on plus new, I have 4 columns. Column number 1 is the customers column. That's where you log the invoices, the payments, the estimates, etc. Column number 2 is your vendors column. Vendors are people you give money to. That's where you can log your expenses and checks, where you can enter bills and log bill payments. Quick side note, when you see the up arrow, it means that that's not available with the version of QuickBooks Online you have, but you can upgrade your QuickBooks Online to make it available to you. Column number 3 is the employees column, where you can enter stuff relating to payroll. Column number 4 is kind of the other stuff. So if you wanted to manually enter a bank deposit or a transfer or a journal entry, I strongly encourage that you do not enter journal entries. If you don't see these 4 columns, what you might see looks like this. You might see just this. If you see just this, you can click on Show More to get the extra columns. On the side, this gray bar, this menu, it's much like the menu when you're in your computer and you have the menu at the top of your screen. I'll show you my downloads folder. It's kind of similar to this, how you have the file, the home, the share, the view. That's the same thing as you have here. It's a static menu that appears no matter where you are within your QuickBooks. So you can kind of navigate this. You get the idea. Across the top, you have things like My Experts. So when I click on My Experts, it takes you to a place that you can search for people nearby who can help you if you get stuck. So for example, you have the option to hire Intuit to do your bookkeeping. You have the option to upgrade to QuickBooks Advanced for $150 a month. You have the option to look for an accounting pro in your area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that just so you can see what it looks like. So you can enter your accountant's email if you have one. So for example, if you need my help, you would enter rachel@generalfrog.com, click invite. You can say, oh, I don't have anyone, but I need to find someone. So you can say, find a pro. Give us information. So we'll say location, 98004, supports, QuickBooks Online. Great. Oh, I didn't mean to click it. Now it won't go away. All right. So 98004, you can find people. For example, this is where I'm at on the list. You can learn a bit about me here. Here's other people who are also QuickBooks pros. Back to the menu across the top. When you search help here, it takes you to online forums within the Intuit network. I'm going to go ahead and close this. This magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner is really nice. It's your search menu. And so it's the equivalent of Control F. You can type in something that you've entered that you're looking for, or your most recent transactions appear here. So for example, if I click on this, it'll open up that expense that I previously entered. And there's the expense. So that might be helpful if you save something and realize you forgot to add a memo, or you have questions, or you want to look at it again, you can click on that to get back into it. Since we're here, I'll show you something I have not shown you yet, which is if you scroll down, there's a spot for attachments. So you can drag and drop to add things. So we'll drag and drop and add. All right, so I've just added an attachment. The attachment that I've added isn't really a receipt of any sort. It's just an image of one of the icons. But I wanted to show you how easy it was to add an attachment to your record. So I'll click Save and Close. It says you've modified. Yeah, I made an attachment. I'm fine with it. You'll notice that sometimes when I've been working, I've duplicated the tab. If you ever find that you need to have two tabs, you can just duplicate. You can keep duplicating all along. You'll notice also that I'm using Chrome Incognito. The reason that I use Chrome Incognito is because I won't have to clear my cache and cookies if I do that. If I use my regular Chrome, I often will need to clear my cache and cookies. Let's pop into the settings so that I can show you a couple of things in here. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a gear. When you click on the gear, you have a couple of things. You have your company, you have your list, you have some tools, and you have a profile. What I want to show you is two things, the settings and the users. Since we're here, I'll show you the manage users. So for accounting firms, a moment ago we invited myself. I can either resend the invite or I can say, oh, you know what, I'm totally good and I can delete. So in this case, I'm going to delete the invite. I have one user. Simple Start allows you to have one user for your accounting program. If you need to share this with your team, I encourage you to upgrade to Essentials. If you need to add an accountant or a bookkeeper or both, you can have up to 2 accounting partners and you can add them here. So now let's go back into the account and settings. When we're at account and settings, there's a menu on the left-hand side. So we'll just wait for that to appear. All right, so account and settings, we talked about this briefly in the beginning. I just want to go over it again with you. So here's our logo. Here's the business name. The tax form, even though we told it in the beginning what our tax form was, it forgot. So we're going to say we're a sole proprietor. Our industry is pet and pet supply stores. Our email address, we can add company phone, website, we can add a business address, marketing preferences. On the left-hand side is billing and subscription. So for example, we have Simple Start right now. We can click to subscribe, which we're not going to do. We can choose to upgrade. So if we looked at this and said, you know what, we really need some features that are not available in Simple Start, we can change our plan. We can choose to go from Simple Start to Essentials or to Plus or to Advanced. Earlier, when we looked at QuickBooks Online pricing, we didn't see Simple Start as an option. QuickBooks Online pricing. I don't have a good reason for this, which is why I want to make a point to show you that it is an available option. So here's the options that are available when we go to sign up for QuickBooks Online. Simple Start, Plus, and Advanced. And I'm just going to toggle this so you can see the actual pricing. Now when we look at upgrading, there's another tier that we didn't see before, and that's Essentials. You can kind of look through here and see the description or the difference between each of these types. We're not going to choose to upgrade any of them. So we've talked about billing and subscription. Over here is the usage. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's a couple settings for sales. You can kind of look through here. If you see anything you want to change, you just click on the pencil icon to change it. There's some settings for expenses, and then there are settings for payments, and then there's advanced settings. I'm going to go ahead and click done because there are no changes that I'd like to make. Before I leave, what I want to do is show you the emails that came through when I set up this account. So let me just pull over my email program. All right, so we're going to work oldest to newest. So this is the first email we got. This didn't come in when we first set it up, so I had mentioned that it seemed surprising and I was hopeful I didn't mess up the email address. So this is what they give us. Some tools for getting started, which is great. So here we are, stuff. Let me go ahead and archive that. The next one, this is Intuit Accountant. This says we're confirming that your name was updated in Intuit. This happened when I signed out and signed back in. QuickBooks said, oh, what is your first and last name? So I entered it. It tells us we've updated it. It doesn't tell us what the name was updated to, but I know it was us, so I'm not too worried about it. This one is coming to me when I invited myself as an accountant user. So if you invite somebody to join your QuickBooks Online account as an accountant user, this is the email they get. So-and-so has invited you to access their books. Choose to accept the invitation. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then this one comes to me. So it says, hi, Rachel at General Frog's Fantasy Pet Shop. You have invited Rachel at General Frog to become an accountant user to your QuickBooks Online. So I like this a lot because if you accidentally invite someone or if somebody got invited and you didn't know about it, you would get a confirmation that says, hey, somebody got invited to access your account. So I'm going to go ahead and close that as well. That brings us to the end. I hope this was informative and helpful. Stay tuned for the next video where I channel my inner fantasy pet shop owner and we set up accounting software for our small business. I'm going to repeat this process using various accounting softwares such as QuickBooks Desktop, Xero, FreshBooks, Zoho Books. If you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like to see in future videos, please leave a comment and let me know. If this was helpful, please click the like button and/or subscribe. Thank you so much.